Yeah, I was doing the same thing. How are you doing, Edu? How are things there in Costa Rica with the tail end of
Not
that
nice.
hurricane?
No, not
Wow.
nice. Actually, here my home, the wind threw down a tree which broke our roof. So
Wow.
water was pouring in part of the house. And we've been working for 4 months establishing food farms for over 100 families already. And in the tourist area that closed down and people didn't know how to grow anything and they were out of money, out of jobs, all the big companies just closed the hotels and moved out and left everybody on the road.
Wow.
It's all under 1 meter water. So,
What's the name of the hurricane?
ETA.
Eta?
Eta?
Yeah, S time of arrival.
Yeah. Wow.
ETA. That's funny. Wow. Well, I mean, not funny for you, not funny for anybody else.
No, the bridges are out. These are communities that were really affected by COVID, by losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods.
Wow.
And now they're stuck in the middle of a COVID pandemic without bridges, without access to anything.
Wow.
The country's broke, so it's not like we can rebuild stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe the tradition is 7 plagues.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Okay, let's get started. Hi, Lee, Philippe, Thomas, Yolanda, nice to see you, Tarek, Sihan, Rwanda. So we have, Edward, we have people from all around the world, Middle East, South America, North America, Europe, a bit everywhere, yes. So thank you very much, Eduard. Welcome everybody. Today it's a special talk, a bit different. I'm very excited because it's about development, sustainability, macro politics, and Eduardo it's an amazing player in that space. Paula, you recommended Eduardo. I had met Eduardo. I didn't recognize that immediately, but we met in Chile some years ago through PMI. And when we just talked briefly, the connection was there. But Paula, can you quickly introduce Eduardo and then we move straight to him?
Sure. Well, Eduardo has an impressive resume. If you go to Eduard, and so Eduard, EDUARD,
Don't waste time
MELLER
or anything, please.
.com.
We're all human.
Yes, yes, but you know, like it's important for people here to have some idea of the scope of your experience. So I would encourage everyone to go to edwardmuller.com and you'll see what the scope of his experience is. As far as my connection is concerned, I had been enticed to watch the Humanity Rising series through Ubiquity University. And I will put the link in the chat for everybody once Eduard gets started so that you have an idea of the sorts of things that he's talked on. And it's amazing, like I said, the breadth of the experience that you have, that you're able to speak in this international space on things like, so he was a co-convener with Jim Garrison on the Humanity Rising sessions, which started as of pretty much the first day that COVID started, and they're free sessions on YouTube through Ubiquity University, usually are courses that you would pay for. But ones that are free, they're hour-long sessions, and they talk about things like donut economics and regenerative systems, and cities that are applying these approaches, and alternative economic systems like the seeds approach, which is I thought was just amazing. And so there are different ways in which, you know, countries and companies can do business around the world, but not just that. Integrating it into how we are as a humanity, how we are as a global planet, how we take care of one another, what are the systems that are involved in making sure that they're integrated, like, you know, Kate Rayworth from Donut Economics, author of Donut Economics, says that the four corners of our existence, or at least on this planet, as she puts it in her systems approach, are covered. So you're looking at industry or business, and then government, but also looking at commons, you know, making sure you're taking care of your commons, and also taking care of your households, all within the scope of the planetary boundaries. And so that in itself, that particular one, which I believe was day 63, where Eduard was presenting on what Costa Rica is doing with regard to those systems and actively implementing them with the, the seal of approval of your president, as well as, Kate Raworth's presentation. I just found mind-blowing. So I've been watching ever since. And I connected with Eduard because of that, because I thought it would be great to stay in contact with someone who has such a vast experience in terms of integrating what we need to do to move forward as a human species on this planet, and covering all of those bases. So with that being said, this is my small 6 degrees of separation from Eduard. And I know he has so much more to say, especially with regards to his own vast field experience, his work with the Universidad de Cooperación Internacional, so University for International Cooperation, that works tandem with the Gaia Foundation. They're offering a free course. I'll put those links into the chat. And I also saw today that there is a free screening of Kiss the Ground, Eduard, just in case. So I'll put that in the chat as well. So this is all really great integrated stuff for you to be able to find out how to have a better sense of how to move forward with your business life, your family life, your life in society, but integrating these concepts in ways that are sustainable for the planet within the planetary boundaries.
Thank
So
you, Paula.
with that being said, take it away, Eduard.
Eduard, I just gave you option to share your screen. And yes, welcome, Eduard.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I did set up a presentation. It's easier to keep track. I've been giving between 1 and 9 presentations per week over the last 6 months. And if I don't keep track with some slides, I just talk on forever, and that'd probably get you bored. But I will be talking from my experience, less as an academic and more as a person that has been involved in field work for many, many years. So I'll start by sharing my screen. If I find...
Eduard, just while you get this set up, how did you end up where you are in that kind of space? Was something that you always wanted, or how did you evolve into that position when you were in school? What did you want to be, and how did you end up now in what you are?
Actually, that's a good question. I've been involved in many, many development fields working. I actually was a veterinarian for many years.
Oh.
And just a sec, I'm having trouble with my PowerPoint. Okay, so, and actually I tried all over the place. I tried working at the university level. I tried working at international level. I tried all sorts of things, and actually was very frustrated that people did not manage to move away from the reductionist approach of the academic world that has us in silos. So all the peer-reviewed journals, you have to be very specific, very narrow in your field to get published. And we're not able to see systems, the complex systems that we're facing. So we don't have solutions to poverty. We don't have solutions to climate change, to global change, because there are complex issues that require holistic approaches. So most of my work, and that's why I founded the university already 26 years ago, to try to really be able to do transdisciplinary work. It hasn't been easy because the market is not there. The government doesn't understand it. We had programs that were not approved by the ministry because they said, well, the graduates from this program don't have a professional college to go to. And if we think of that old world where you had all these professional associations, that won't be the future world. Actually, 9 out of 10 jobs that will be the best jobs in 10 years don't even exist now. So we really need to move away. And actually the university system is lagging behind. They're still in last century, and some are still 2 centuries old in their mindset and their approach. So how do you break away from this? So I said, I'll start my own. And actually, COVID didn't affect us too much because I started working online in 1996 when everybody said, you can't do that. You can't teach a master's program online. We launched the first master's program project management accredited by PMI back with PMBOK 1 online. So yeah, wow. It is a process. But anyway, let me see. Somehow or other, something has happened to my... There I am. Okay, so I'll share. Sorry. Share screen. Now it's there. Okay. So I guess you can see my screen now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so I'll give an overview of regenerative development. It's actually not a fashion word. And I hope I can convince you of that. It's a new paradigm that we really need to attend to. And especially, I mean, we already knew that our planet was in crisis. We've known that for decades. We knew that our economic system is in crisis. Our social systems are in crisis. Our educational system is in crisis. But we're still not acting. So this guy came along, and he didn't come to disrupt our system. He came to open our eyes, to show us how wrong the system is, how unresilient our system that we've been building for the last 200, 300 years is not capable of withstanding any new issue. And I think I think it's actually a favor of nature, because it's giving us a fire drill. It's saying, okay, you have this chance. Either you take it and you take it seriously, and it could have a vaccine, it could have a treatment, but climate change, planetary collapse, biodiversity loss, extinction does not have a way back. So we have the opportunity to learn with this, and we either bounce beyond to a new future, or we want to bounce back, we're gone. There is no chance to really, we're really, it's exponential. We're not used to thinking exponentially. So the planetary collapse is exponential, as well as the technological development is exponential. Now, I personally think that technology will help, but it's not the solution to our current issues. So saying that, we already knew that we had to cross that bridge and look for harmony with biodiversity, look for harmony with nature. Now we're stuck in the middle of the bridge, and we can either sprint across to the other side and start learning, or we can walk slowly back and sit down and wait for collapse to happen. And the science is out there. I mean, it's not a secret anymore, and it's all over, and I'm living it. Outside my window, I mean, nature has given us so many warnings, and we have not taken them seriously. But now we're getting to a point that we really have to take them seriously. So yes, the system we built really isn't helping us moving forward and giving our children, giving our current generation a possibility to keep on living. This could be the last generation of humans on the planet if we keep on doing what we're doing. So it was 33 years ago in the Brundtland report that we came up with a definition that we had to leave the future generations the same possibilities to meet their needs without, compromising them. 33 years later, this new generation is just really mad at us. And they know their planet is dying. They know they don't have a future. They know we have to act now. We should have acted 20, 30 years ago. And they don't value the same stuff. You don't see a teen of these crying for gold or for diamonds or for money. They're looking for other things. So I have a lot of hope. Greta has done in a year and a half, 2 years, more than what I have achieved in 40 years of my work. So I admire them, but what I'm trying to do is training these young people so that they start giving solutions, not pointing fingers at guilty people. So as long as you keep on pointing fingers, I think if Greta had enough backing to actually start proposing solutions, and she's done some in New York. She already talked about nature-based solutions and things. That is more powerful than just keep on pointing to people who really are not capable of changing. I think a lot of the older people are not capable of changing or don't want to, or are just tied to the system. I'd rather have a bunch of young women leading our countries than old men with white hair like me, or even gold or orange hair, leading, impacting the world. So we might be, and I think we are, in a critical moment of our history where we could be following what happened to the Romans, to the Mayas, and all these other civilizations that were here before us. We're actually facing collapse. We're in a process of self-destruction at a very, very accelerated rate. So even my country, I have things that I've seen over the last 6 months that I wouldn't believe. It's Costa Rica. And it's just masked under an economic crisis caused by COVID, but I don't think it is. It's a lot more than an economic. It's an ethical crisis. It's a moral crisis. It's a lack of natural resources, the destruction of natural resources, which actually originated the COVID disease. So we still measure using the wrong metrics. And even Stiglitz and Zen said, this is mismeasuring our lives. And one thing that is very correlated to GDP is inequality. As GDP grows, inequality grows. And for those who speak Spanish, I call GDP the Producto Interno para Brutos, because it never measured development, and we're still using it to measure development. By the way, if anybody wants to interrupt and ask a question, just go ahead. So we need to reinvent the metrics we're using to measure development. And one of them is the planetary boundaries approach. And this is not new. This was published for the first time 11, 12 years ago. And what they tried to do, these scientists around the world, coordinated by Stockholm Resilience Center, was define this safe operating space for humanity. So which are the planetary boundaries where we can keep safe as humans? And so they identified 9 of the main changes that humans have caused. So we are in the Anthropocene. We're in a geological time in the evolution of our planet where humans are causing all the damage, or most of the damage. The most important changes are caused by humans. And what people don't know, even if it's out there in the media, it's out there all over the place, it's not climate change that's going to kill us first. Loss of biodiversity is number 1, and we're in the high risk zone. We're really on the verge of a planetary extinction that will not allow us to keep on living. Followed by fertilizer use, the way we produce our food. I don't know who came up with a great idea that chemicals and putting poison on our food was good. It isn't, and it doesn't match no matter how you look at it. Land use change and climate change, which is growing exponentially, and they're all tied together. Now, a lot of research has come out, and Campbell actually came up with a study where 80% of global change, not climate change, 80% of global changes are caused by agriculture. So we need to focus on agriculture and produce food in a healthy way. Healthy for us and healthy for the environment, for the planet. So as I mentioned, it's all out there. It's all over the news. Biodiversity loss is critical. Australia lost over 1 billion animals. And I'm not talking about insects, I'm talking about large animals. 1 billion animals in December, January, because of the forest fires. There's no way I had a friend who set up the biological corridor all along the East Coast. He died a week ago. He spent 40 years building this biological corridor that burned down in 4 days. It's just, I mean, for us who are involved in the field, who are seeing this, it's just too scary. And this report just came out 2 or 3 weeks ago, the global assessment, and none of the countries have met the targets. All countries have ignored the need to conserve biodiversity. It's just amazing. I was in the negotiation process in Nagoya when we established the strategic plan 2011, 2020, and we put 20 targets, very simple targets out there, and none of the countries have met these targets. So going back to this, I was born in a biodiversity-rich country. These are photos that I've taken in one of the biosphere reserves in Costa Rica, and I was born in a region, Latin America, that's tremendously diverse in culture, and the knowledge that's embedded in these cultures could give us solutions to the future. But academia does not even contemplate them until recent years when we're starting to talk about the knowledge dialogues between different cultures. And these cultures are being washed out by our development model a lot quicker than biodiversity. On the left-hand side is a blonde boy. That photo was taken when he was 3.5 years old. He looks like this now. That's my older son with my granddaughter. On the right is his younger brother. I'm not going to go into details, but his younger brother at the same age has the right to see less than half of the life that his older brother saw. Half of our life in Central America is gone. At the planetary level, it's 2/3 of life gone already. And most of that will not come back unless we really step up with biodiversity conservation. Climate change. I mean, we were told a few years ago that we had until 2020 to change. And even with COVID, in spite of COVID, we're not changing. We're going to a dead end very, very quickly, exponentially quickly. So we have to act. And this year, we had 38 degrees centigrade above the Arctic Circle. I mean, that is unleashing a time bomb with methane release. And on the left bottom, you can see the map of methane and temperature accumulated. It's just amazing the amount of methane that's being released that heats the planet up 86 times faster than CO2. That's a crater of a methane leak in Siberia. And there are hundreds and hundreds, or maybe even thousands and thousands of these craters now. And we have over 12 million hectares of forest burning in Siberia, Alaska, and other places. So we're there. And it's not lack of knowledge, it's not lack of science, it's not lack of data. We produce more data every year than all the years prior. It's lack of wisdom. We're not transforming this knowledge into wisdom. We're not making decisions based on science and on wisdom. So we need to wake up to it. Now that waking up, are we going to be mere spectators to that new normal, or are we actually going to be part of that better future? So I believe that I'm not going to sit down on a chair and wait to adapt to a changing and collapsing planet. That for me is UN BS, sorry for that. But they're telling us we need to learn to adapt to collapsing planet. No, we build the planet we want. We build the future we want. We have the possibility. Nature in these 6, 7, 8 months vacation we've given it has shown us how resilient it is, how energetic it is to bounce back. And that's the only thing that can bounce back. Humanity has to bounce beyond. So nature has shown us that it is capable of this rebirth. So let's help it. Now we need to realize, and this is one of the most important parts, that nature does not need us. We were wrong telling people we had to take care of nature. So people think that by planting a tree and recycling a bottle, they're doing good. Nature does not need us, and it's showing us that. So it will kick us out. We need to realize that if nature is not functioning, and for nature to function, biodiversity and ecosystems have to function. They cannot be destroyed all the time for economic purposes. So if nature does not function, we're gone. And we're in that process, and we probably have less than 2 decades to act radically for this generation to be not the last one. So as I said, we have this coronavirus, we have this fire drill. We have to take it seriously and use this chance to bounce beyond. And people are actually now craving for a different future. A lot of the businesses and the politics are wanting to bounce back or build back better. We need to bounce beyond to this new future. So we are part of nature. We need to realize that. If we don't realize that, we're actually not going to make it. So we have all the tools. These are biomimicry, nature-based solutions, all what's being talked about. But we need to evolve. We need to reinvent our society, our community of life, human life on the planet. And I used to be very much into activism, political activism, academic activism. And I always thought of revolution. We needed a revolution. No, we need an evolution. We don't need a revolution. We need an evolution. So we need to go from our traditional ego economy, ego society-based system where man, masculine man, is on top, the woman underneath, and life at our feet. We are in a transition stage where we go to eco-economics, the green economy, recycling, circular economy. That's still within the same framework, a little bit different. So there is balance. What we need to move is to Seva, where humanity is at service of life. So any business has to be in favor of life. I'm not talking about abortion. I'm talking about all life forms. So we need to give nature the chance to grow back and give us the abundance and not scarcity that we were brought up with. Nature is abundant, and it can be abundant if we don't destroy it. So we need to get back to that stage. And so we need to give more than what we are taking. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Three Horizons model, but basically the business as usual is losing its fit for purpose. That's the red line. We need to identify what is worth conserving. We can't throw everything away, but we need to think of that viable future. And to build that viable future, we need the transition, we need the innovation, and that's the Horizon 2. And that's where my university is, that's where I've been for the last 30 years, trying to push the changes. And we now have a lot of tools, and we're working with a lot of different organizations that allow us to. So the basic principle is Buck Fuller's idea that it's not worthwhile fighting the existing system. I spent 35 years of my life fighting the current systems and telling people, look, we can't do it like that. We can't do it like that. Now I'm totally switched that off, and I'm working on building a new system that will make the old one obsolete. So that's what I've been working on for the last maybe 10 years. So we need to transcend that human thinking of superiority over nature and look at the cycles, look at the systems, look at relationships, look at the care of life. And that's actually the rebirth of the feminine principle. It's not the gender issue, it's the capacity that mothers have and Mother Earth has of caring, of feeling, of belonging to a greater whole, of the spiritual component. And academia is allergic to spirituality. When I talk about spirituality with other presidents of other universities, they look at me like, yeah, what did this guy smoke this morning? And when they see I'm serious, then they say, how do you teach it? And I say, you can't teach it. Well, how do you measure it? You can't do an exam for spirituality. But we need to bring this mindfulness, this consciousness as one of the main tools for kids. So the soft skills are actually the critical skills today. So we have to question, what is development? My father's German. I always thought Germany was the model to follow. And Germany has been way above its capacity before I was born. So now I say, no, Germany is not the path to follow. So going to the donut economics, Germany has achieved a social threshold, the light blue circle in the center. Perfect. Society is perfect. They have democracy, they have education, they have health, they have everything. At what cost? So the German population has gotten that status of life by using resources of the rest of the planet, by taking resources away from other places. And that is the red outside, the planetary boundaries which have been crossed. So when I look at two Latin American countries, Chile, which is the model for the World Bank, it's a model for IDB of competitiveness. I think it's country number 22 in the competitiveness at the world level. It has a lower social threshold, and that is what triggered the collapse. I've been working with the Senate in Chile. I was there in January before COVID, trying to help with different organizations to allow them to be able to actually develop a new constitution using wisdom. And their inequality was what made the population crash. And look at that, they've done less in the social segment with a lot higher cost in the planetary boundaries. So Costa Rica is actually a country that has achieved a very good social status with very little impact in terms of planetary boundaries. And if we look at the Social Progress Index, which is a newer measurement, it's not new, but it's newer, it's GDP pushed aside. On health and wellness, Germany and Costa Rica are at the same level. Chile is below. So I can say Costa Rica is a better model for development because we have the same health and wellness as Germany, but we don't have the footprint that Germany has caused in order for that to. Now we have to realize that people who drive BMWs, Mercedes, and Volkswagen are part of that footprint from Germany. So we cannot keep on pointing fingers, as I said at the beginning. So this is what led me 3 years ago to launch this initiative to use Costa Rica as a model country to regenerate the planet. And it's done based on the idea that we still have hope to build the future we want. So young people can help, can be part, they don't have to be educated, anybody, even a farmer, has what to say in this process to build the future we want. And that is giving children and young people hope, even adults. I have adults that have changed their profession, their careers, and are saying, thank you. Now I have a reason to get up in the morning and work. So Amsterdam embraced the donut to bounce beyond COVID. And we're following some of these initiatives. Costa Rica is part of the Donut Economics Action Lab. There's Kate Rayworth, and actually Daniel Val, who's another brilliant person in regeneration. You can actually look up his book. It's being published in Spanish this week. It's in English and Portuguese already. And what we're going to do is we're going to identify the metrics with Donut Economics Action Lab and actually reduce the planetary boundaries and increase social threshold to get to the perfect donut. And that road mapping process has actually already been recognized by the Secretary of the Commonwealth to be used as a roadmap for the 54 Commonwealth nations. And I'm actually co-leading an initiative on a road mapping process for regeneration for New Zealand. So we're co-developing these country-level initiatives to show other countries that it's possible, and we get to live in well-being. And it's not a constraint, it's not a reduction of development. And we have lots of global and national partners that are working with us in this. So it is a very, very interesting collaborative process. So what is regenerative development? It's basically recognizing that landscapes have to function, ecosystems have to function. They provide our food, they provide pollination. Bees and pollinators are dying, and 90% of our food requires pollination. I know the Chinese are doing these micro robots to pollinize trees. That is not going to be the solution. So we need to realize that and help nature recover its health. We need this new symbiotic relationship with nature where all life forms are benefiting from our development process. So it's developing through conservation. And we have to measure it differently. Why don't we measure it with happiness and hope instead of GDP? Why don't we measure it with well-being instead of GDP? So it's integrating these 6 dimensions. And I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to spend all the time talking, but that is a challenge. Our universities would have to get a big sledgehammer and throw down their walls between the departments. Our ministries would have to do the same. So we need to really reinvent a lot of the processes so that we can actually work in a holistic way. And there are many, many tools that are available now to do this. So how do you do it on the field? Well, we start with regenerating functional landscapes. No matter if it's a city, or if it's rural, or if it's conservation, if it's a protected area, all ecosystems have to function. And we see now cities, we're working with the mayor who actually turned one of Costa Rica's cities into the sweet city because it's measuring its urban development by the amount of pollinators and earthworms in the parks. They're all citizens of that city. So we have already the technology and methodologies. We don't have to invent anything. This is what a country level process looks like in the first generation, and this is not all included. So it is complex and it requires a lot of systemic thinking and systemic work. And we're using many, many tools, basically Savory Institute for Regenerative and Holistic Cattle Grazing, regenerative agriculture, regeneration of biological connectivity across the country. This will give us our functional landscapes that keep humanity alive. We need social regeneration. We need society to actually feel responsible and take action, not just think of voting and then leaving somebody else the job. We need to involve society in defining their way of governance. I don't believe central governments will be valid in 10, 20 years. We'll see local governance really picking up because it's local people who have to define what they want, not somebody sitting in a central office 10,000 miles away. So we need regenerative economies, moving away from profit. We need regenerative cultural design. I'm not talking about theater and art. I'm talking about the glue that keeps communities together and makes communities different. So we're different than the Nicaraguans or Panamanians because of that glue, that culture that is alive and that we're losing, the culture of care, the culture of feeling part of. We need regenerative politics. As I said, I want young women in political positions. Ocasio-Cortez is a beautiful example for the US. And the spirituality, which are values, and it's not religion, it's values, it's ethics, it's consciousness, it's mindfulness. The Earth Charter is a tremendous tool which we've supported for over 20 years. It's 20 years old now. And Laudato Si is another tool. There are many. So to go to the finish line, we're in the Anthropocene. Agriculture is responsible for 80% of global changes. So I'll just use agriculture as an example. So we need to recognize that agriculture is biology, it's not chemistry. And if it is chemistry, then put a seal of chemical on the food you're buying. Why do you have to have the people who are doing it correctly pay all this money to get certified organic? If the certified chemical is so good, then put certified chemical on it and have people buy it. So we need to rethink this. We need to rethink knowledge. This is Manuel Castellanos. He's a Lacandon Indian from Chiapas. This is land that was degraded, and a very famous Western university, I used to put the name there, but now I took it away, did the left with all the scientists, and Manuel alone did the right. Who knows how to regenerate a forest? So we need to recover that millenary knowledge and wisdom. I mean, he has 5% carbon in 50, 60 centimeters of topsoil after 9 years, whereas the famous university has nothing, has weeds growing. So using some of these old wisdom systems, this is Felix Cañete. He's one of the founders of the Cuban food system that saved Cuba from starvation in '89 when the Russians moved out and the blockade was there. They had no chemicals, they had no food. So they invented how to produce food in high quality very quickly. We've done over 100 of these farms over the last 2 months in the tourist areas that people have lost their jobs and their money. And they're harvesting food 4 weeks afterwards without a single drop of chemicals. So it works, yes, it works. And it's very simple. It's you bring in labor, yes, that's labor intensive, but that's exactly what these people need. We have only in that area over 200,000 people that lost their jobs. So it's not easy to get somebody that has been in services to start putting their fingers in soil. But once you get food, and the young kids, it's amazing to see their smiling faces when they are harvesting their first lettuce or their first carrot. So we picked an area of Costa Rica, the most hard hit by lack of tourism, the closing of the tourism industry in April. It's Guanacaste, and we're putting everything there. We just signed an agreement last Saturday with the 11 mayors of all the territory to regenerate, and they're committing to regeneration. So we're working at the local governance. We were working with the tourism industry, the business people, to develop a regenerative tourism post-COVID. We're working on public policy. We're working on holistic grazing. We're working on diversifying the economy. We're using seeds and alternative currency to finance regeneration. And if we do it correctly, if we moved our productive systems in agriculture to regenerative, both cattle grazing and agriculture, we could reverse climate change. This is a publication recognized by IPCC from January this year. This is exactly the amount of carbon we have to take out of the atmosphere. So we pull it out of the skies and put it beneath our feet through regenerative agriculture. So on top of producing good food, healthy food, delicious food, we save the planet just by getting rid of chemicals. So it's not complex. Yeah, we have a lot of interest there, petrochemical companies that will fight this. This also came out, there's a white paper by Rodale Institute. Rodale invented the term regenerative agriculture in 1948. Just cattle alone, through regenerative grazing, half of the degraded land, if we regenerate it with cattle, we fix more carbon per year than what is emitted currently by our systems. So it's not electric cars and solar panels. They help. But the true need is pulling carbon from the sky already. We passed the critical points, and we're living that today with this hurricane. We're living that today with the forest fires. So we can actually reverse climate change by producing food healthy. So Paola mentioned it. Look at this documentary. A lot of criticism has come up, but this is true. I mean, I'm involved in this. I know the people who are doing all of this research, all of this communication. They're good people. It's founded in science, but it's holistic. So a lot of the peer-reviewed journals don't even like to publish this because it doesn't fit in their journals. Alan Savory, a very good friend of mine, he's had so much stuff thrown on him, but he's correct. It's not the cow, it's the how. So it's not the animal itself, it's the way we produce. And if I had more time, I'd go into details. Regenerative money, I mean, the current currency system is fraud. And now Joint Seeds is probably the biggest initiative globally, and it's funding anybody who's doing regeneration. So I'm paying part of my staff with seeds. We're actually funding regenerative agriculture with seeds. It's a new world. The B Corp, the Sistema B, is a very powerful system that is really spreading through Latin America. They're amazing examples of corporations. Guayaquil is one of them, who produces yerba mate and produces something like an energy drink that is healthy, that is not full of taurine and other things. And it supports over 60,000 families. Actually, now it's investing money in Venezuela because that's where the rain that they use for producing the yerba mate comes from. So they're investing in the forest of Venezuela and Colombia to actually keep on with the rain factories that they depend on. Wellbeing Economy Alliance is a very powerful movement. I have the privilege to be in their global council, and I was in the founding process. This is what led New Zealand to approve the non-GDP, or not completely GDP-based budget for the second time in a row. I mean, this is economy based on well-being, and New Zealand is a good example of what can be done with this. We have Bounce Beyond, this initiative we've been working on for about 4 or 5 months. We launched it last week or week before. We cannot bounce back to the old system, but we need to create the infrastructures. We need to co-create the necessary infrastructures to allow all these new economies to move forward and turn into mainstream. And they will be fought, but we can do it. And we're looking for support at the global level to get this to mainstream. It's a 2-year project. We believe that with COVID and the need people are seeing to live differently, we can actually use the opportunity to bounce beyond. So this is a very powerful initiative. This requires a new way of education. So technology is exponential, planetary collapse is exponential, we need to move quickly. And our people are facing uncertainty, permanent change, disruption. What does a kid see today? Just think of this generation, the COVID generation. I mean, think of us as kids growing up having to use the face mask all day if you're allowed to go to school. This is what we've given them. This is what we're moving towards. There are 850,000 new viruses ready to pop over to humans if we keep on destroying nature. So it's not something cosmetic. It's not plugging our cars into electric sources that's going to save us. It's actually thinking of a different way of learning and doing things. So how do we educate for the future? You know, how do we build this future we want? That's what kids have to know. They have to learn, and they have to be resilient enough and creative enough. So by using the same measuring stick, which takes creativity away from children, let's change our school systems. And we're going to do it. We're launching a partner school with Amsterdam here in Costa Rica, where we're going to throw away the old educational system, and we're going to get kids to really be empowered and develop those critical skills to be able to build their future. And they can learn a lot of other technical things on YouTube, and that's where kids are learning today. So it starts with me, it starts with us. This is not something we can push onto others. So I have to start changing myself, get my family involved, get my friends involved, get my town involved. And we need to really think back. Our educational system was invented to produce people for industry, people that are not thinking but are capable of doing repetitive jobs. So by killing creativity, by measuring youth by best grades, who said best grades measured the potential a child has? And it's the same measuring stick, then people are put into a homogeneous pattern to produce and work 24 hours a day. So how do we measure? Is an exam valid? So we have to rethink this whole thing. And that means get rid of the education, the MBA programs that show you to compete and smash your competition, to actually show people we need to collaborate. We need to build our future together. We need to co-create the solutions together. And we have started that. This is our Master's in Project Management, the oldest one in Latin America and Caribbean. Now it contains elements of regeneration. So people actually realize that environmental impact assessment is legal, but it's not really moral today because it's impacting life. So we need to rethink. We need new entrepreneurs based on regeneration. We have all of this already in line. And Paula mentioned Humanity Rising. We need to get outreach. We need to go out and reach to many, many people around the world. This is not going to happen within one university, one country. We need lots of partners. And that's what we've been dedicating a lot of time to communicating this at a global level. Yesterday, I was with the climate change champions talking about this new approaches to our development. So I do hope that my son, the younger one, and the older ones, and my granddaughter remember me and actually can thank me for having made the change. Maybe it's for having tried to change, but I hope we're getting somewhere. I just don't want them to come up and say, what were you thinking mortgaging our future and using the last resources for your well-being, for you to drive a good car, for you to travel, for you to go on a yacht, and you didn't leave us with a possibility of life. So we need to learn how to enjoy, joyfully celebrate that life. And the big question is, will we act on time? We don't have that much time. So I just hope this 8-year-old kid of mine has a future, and he's already helping me to build it. He got a distinction in his school for being the best scientist at his age. So I'll stop sharing and open up. I know there's a lot of information at once, but it's just food for thought.
It's just so inspirational, Eduard. It's a topic that we're not very familiar with. But once you open the door, it's like, wow, there's people fighting for other aspects of life which are fundamental. So I'm just very inspired and thinking about what can we do more. We had some people like Monica talking about design for change and how to influence kids around the world to do projects. And this is it's in the same line. How can we think and act more sustainable for the better good? I have just a quick question, Eduard. What needs to happen to make this not just another fancy area of work? We have the sustainability goals from UN, which on paper they sound amazing. By 2030, all this, but then nothing happens. This is also an initiative coming from many initiatives, but what needs to happen and to make it really happen according to all your experience?
Well, that's why I showed the 3 horizons curve, and I mentioned Buckminster Fuller. Don't fight the system, build a new one. So we're working at the country level here in New Zealand. Now Brussels and Belgium, we're helping them. We launched 2 years ago Regeneration Day, 26th of April. So next year in April, Belgium will launch its initiative for regeneration at the country level. So by showing that it's possible, by showing business people that you make actually more money, by showing people that we have abundance and not scarcity. I mean, a food forest. If we move from monoculture, pineapple, Costa Rica is the largest exporter of pineapple, and we're the largest consumers per capita of chemicals. Our country, my green country, we're applying 26 kilograms of active ingredients per hectare in this country. That's poisoning our people. to produce cheap pineapple for others to consume. So if we move all that to food forest, we have enough food for 5 times, 10 times, 15 times the population. A food forest produces 500 crops. If one goes wrong, have you ever seen a forest that requires fertilizers or pesticides to produce? No. So why do we have to go to monoculture? It's only for the big corporations that get rid of labor, have a machine, but then the soil gets destroyed. The moment you put nitrogen in the soil, you kill it. So you need to put fungi in the soil. And regenerative agriculture actually concentrates, is different than organic because it looks at regenerating the health in the soil. And a healthy soil gives a healthy plant and abundant production. So it's a different concept. So regenerative cattle production, people are used to hearing that we have to get rid of cattle. Well, it so happens that grazing, if it's done correctly, will bury carbon at 2 to 3 meters deep away from forest fires. So actually in the future, cattle production will probably be the best instrument we have because trees are burning. They're burning all over the world. So a forest keeps 80% of the carbon stocks in the biomass that burns, whereas a grassland keeps 80% of the biomass deeply buried in the ground. We have cattle farms here that are growing 1 centimeter a year in topsoil. Multiply that by the amount of tons of soil and the amount of carbon in that. It's huge amounts of carbon. So we need to open our entendederas. You know, we need to open up our possibility for understanding.
Eduard, if people want to help in any way, what can we do with this movement? What will be the one thing we can connect to, help, or give you a hand? What will be that part?
I'd love to. I just put my email there on the chat, and Paula can send it around. And please be a little bit patient because I get several hundred emails a day. But basically, more than what I can say, help me in this, actually is I'd like you to think and look in the mirror and say, what can I do that will actually make my life, my family's life, a better life? What decisions can I make today that will impact life in a positive way instead of a negative way? Yes, we need money. Yes, we need funding. Now with this 100 farms we've done over the last 2.5 months, actually by a very noble person who founded Wix.com. So it's a $15 billion company. He moved down here because he likes to serve. He's been funding this whole initiative. And now from those 100 farms, I'm not sure how many will have survived a meter of water. So yeah, we need to rebuild that. But we need also storytelling. How do we get the message across to the corporate sector? We don't speak that language very well, apparently. So people from the corporate sector, they say, well, this is what inspired me. Can you tell me more about that? So we can develop those stories. Get companies involved in making changes in their company, thinking of enhancing life on the planet instead of destroying it. I know a lot of people don't really know, they really don't know how to do it. And the universities are a problem because they're teaching all of this. I was asked yesterday with the climate change champions in that intervention talking about coffee, and I said, yeah, I grew up in a place where farmers grew coffee based on nature. They had 2 levels of trees. The middle layer produced nitrogen. It was a nitrogen fixing plant that fixed over 300 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per year. And then the top layer was bigger trees, which they used to cut down and buy stuff. So whenever they needed money, they went and cut down the tree, it would grow back. And then came science and made monoculture out of coffee. And our soil was eroded, the plants got sick, and now production is down 45% throughout Americas. And we're going to lose coffee if we don't go back. So now we have people from GIZ and other bilateral cooperation agencies saying, oh, plant trees in the coffee farms. I mean, that was the way the farmers did it originally. We destroyed that. The Central Plains in the US had over 12 feet of carbon-rich soil. That's all gone. Why? Because of fertilizers. It kills the soil, and that produces erosion. So people, yesterday I heard that economic damage of climate change in farmers is $356 billion. They're not measuring the value of the topsoil. Central America loses between 6 and 13 millimeters of topsoil every year. So if you want to go buy fertile topsoil, 10 kilograms is worth about $4 or $5. So we'd be talking about $40,000 per hectare per year that's being lost and kills the oceans and kills the rivers. So why do we keep on destroying land to produce food? Why do we have to have in every supermarket the same products all around the planet? Why do we have to have kiwi in Costa Rica? Is it really necessary? Or should we look at local development where producers and consumers are neighbors, and the producers, the farmers are getting a good price, and the consumer is getting a good price, and there's no refrigeration sending things across the planet because you're buying fresh. In Cuba, you go and you ask for 6 carrots. You have to wait a few minutes because they go and harvest those 6 carrots for you. So it's just rethinking. And of course, if anybody has technical expertise, if anybody has communication expertise, if anybody has something that will do something better, we're all open. If anybody wants to fund families or farms, if anybody wants to fund our strategy with the mayors to get them to do local politics better, it's all about collaboration.
Very good. Thank you, Eduard. And I don't think we have time because it's already time, but Eduard has put his email here. We'll share it. I think there's a few comments. I will attach the chat when I share this, but thank you so much, Eduard. This is an eye-opener. It's in line with what this group wants to do. We have impact somehow in creating a better world. So I think you bring in a very different perspective that we had so far, but I think we're all involved, we're all responsible, and we should, take action, like you say. I don't know, Paula, you want to see 1 minute closing words as you brought that?
Well, I just wanted to really thank everybody for their attentiveness and their questions. I've noticed a lot of activity in the chat there. I put also a lot of links based on what Eduard was saying throughout his presentation. And Eduard, I don't know if it's possible if you could perhaps share some of those slides with us so that they can be passed on.
I'll upload the presentation to you, and you can send it around. You
Wonderful.
You can use it.
Thank you.
There's no copyright in this stuff.
Okay.
It's all collaboration.
Okay, so just as a final note, I just wanted to point out, so there's the course on the Panorama for Sustainable Design, which Eduard has, and the University for International Cooperation has partnered with Gaia Foundation. So that's a free course. Feel free, 15 hours of free course with a certificate, and you'll learn all about it. So this is upskilling at its best for business, for individuals, for society, for family, for commons, for households. Also, there's the link to the Donut Economics Action Lab. So feel free to go there and look at all the indicators that are linked within there, because you can do analysis, country analysis in terms of where we're at right now and where we're going to be going in the future. There's a lot of other links in terms of what Eduard has been doing, as well as the Kiss the Ground documentary, which is now free. It used to be that you had to have a Netflix account for it. You can still see it on Netflix if you have that available. Just look up Kiss the Ground. But now it's being made available for free at the event that I linked in there, and it's on November the 10th. And there will be a Q&A with the director. So you'll see what specific things you can do to bounce beyond this. So anyway, thank you, Eduard, for the richness of your presentation. I am so pleased that you were able to join us and show us other ways of doing business and of moving forward in our world.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eduard. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.